This is the Son of the Law podcast. Hey everyone, welcome. Welcome to the Son of the Law podcast. I'm your host, Jay Christopher. And joining me in my home today is Joe Mann. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. How you doing, Chris?
Good. Glad to have you here. Before we dive in, I just want to say a quick reminder. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to follow us on social media. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Drop comments, share the show with your friends, all the things. Your support helps us grow. 5-star reviews mean the world to us. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get started. I want to introduce Joe Mann. Joe is the man, the myth, the legend. He's going to hate this. But I feel like I have to qualify you. Not that you need an introduction for anyone in the paddling community, but for those outside of the paddling community, this is a real treat for us to have you here. I have in my notes here, the man, the myth, the legend. Men want to be him, women want to be with him. And as I was talking with Powell this morning, he's like, yeah, children want to grow up to be like him. Old men wish they had done it like he did. So we'll talk about 3 specific things, right? And as you and I were talking about the show and kind of coming on here, I feel like I have to talk about your success in the sport of paddling, and in order to qualify, because there are sometimes you don't have to necessarily play basketball to be an expert at basketball. Hashtag 5'7" coaches, but to do this sport and to know this sport, you have to have some experience, and you've got that in spades. So we'll talk about 3 things: Midwest paddle racing, your success racing, and then also kind of your boat shop. Then I know you've got some sponsors and some other stuff we want to talk through too as well, right? So work through that. You have a passion and success that is really unmatched in the Midwest. Owner and race director for Midwest Paddle Racing. And off your website, I grabbed, you've been doing that for 14 years. Your first race with Midwest Paddle Racing was in 2012. Is that right?
That's right. That's when we started Midwest Paddle Racing.
Yep. And you've got 5 races now across Missouri and Kansas: Halloween, Mean Lamine, Shootout, Freedom, and Gritty Growler. What are those races?
So we started in 2012. The first race we did was the Freedom Race.
Mm-hmm.
That was what kind of kicked it off. That is a 63-mile race from that starts on the Lamine River. You go down 3 miles, hit the Missouri, and then you finish in Jeff City. We always try to schedule that race about 3.5 weeks before the MR340. So It's kind of the final tune-up. It's on a 60-mile stretch of the Missouri. Like I said, 3 miles on the Lamine and then 60 on the Missouri. That's in the center of the race.
Yep.
So you get to see some of that section of the Missouri River. About a month before that, we do the Shootout, which is a 50-mile race that starts at Call Point and finishes in Lexington. So that's the first 50 miles of the MR340. And then we do the Mean Lamine in the spring, about a month before the Shootout. That's coming up, I think, on Saturday, May the 19th, I believe.
Yep.
And so that's 2.5 weeks from now, or 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Okay.
And so we kind of prepare small, medium, large to build up towards the MR340. Then we have a couple of fun fall races. The Gritty Growler is usually in the middle of September, and that's it goes by Herman, finishes in New Haven at Paddle Stop Brewery. My good friend Shane Camden owns that Paddle Stop. And so that's a really nice event. There's always a live band. Everybody, instead of getting a trophy or a medal, they get a growler full of beer.
Oh, brilliant.
Yep. And if you're under 21, you can have a soda pop or whatever. But that's a really nice event. And then the final kind of fun run of the season usually is the 2nd or 3rd week of October, called the Halloween. And a lot of folks dress up in costumes for that. It's 11 miles on the or 13 miles on the Kansas River.
So fast and furious.
Yes.
Right on. All right. Missouri River 340, world's longest nonstop river race. Your success in this, I believe, is unmatched. As we sit here with the Governor's Cup in studio, and can you describe the Governor's Cup for us?
Sure. The Governor's Cup is this huge trophy. It's so outlandish.
Oh, it's a big 2 foot tall.
It's like 2 feet tall. It probably weighs 25 pounds.
Probably put a gallon or two of.
You can, yeah. I've seen people drink a celebratory beer out of it at the finish line, and it's a traveling trophy. So whoever wins the race gets to own it for a year, and then turn it back in at the beginning of the following season. So and the winners of the race, the overall winners of the race, have their name inscribed on the plate at the bottom.
And you've got it on there. You've got your name on there 4 separate times.
That's right, 4 times.
That's incredible. And so, a couple of stats here with respect to that: the team division, men's tandem, men's solo, and then team pedal drive. You guys have.
Yes, that's right.
You guys have won on that. And then one other thing that I guess needs to be clarified or qualified here is you have the fastest men's solo record in the history of the race. Is that correct?
That's right. In 2018, when I was 40 years old, I set the men's solo record. My good friend Ryan Slabos set it in 2015 in a Riverhawk.
Yep.
And I got second to him that year. And so I came back 3 or 4 years later and with my own Riverhawk and then broke his record by only 4 minutes. So if you think about like 36 hours and 43 minutes was his time, and I came back and did it in 36 hours and 39 minutes, that's a very slim margin.
It's close enough to where you could be in sight of that person at the end of the race.
Absolutely.
Which is incredible.
I mean, one additional stop, and I wouldn't have done it.
Right. So Stuart and I, we did an episode a few weeks ago on the MR340 in our race. We did it in just over 62 hours. First attempt, felt good about it, but the idea of cutting that time almost in half is, I don't know, it just doesn't seem possible. So, well done.
Well, thank you.
It's incredible.
My first year, I did it solo in 2007, and I did it in 61 hours and some change.
Yeah.
Right. So it took some years and time to figure things out, dial it in.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is great. I mean, and the success of that you feel just finishing is, I mean, I think it's a different type of race for everybody, right? I mean, there's those who are really trying to compete, those who are trying to compete with maybe last year's record or something like that, and those who are just trying to finish. And so just finishing it is huge.
Absolutely.
But you're not only familiar with the MR340 race and your success here. Also, hang on, before we do that, shout out to your teammates on those. You mentioned Ryan. I actually went to high school with Matt Dressler.
Really?
I haven't talked to Matt in forever. So Matt, if you're listening, hey man, I don't know Dylan, but you've got Matt Walters, A-Dog.
Yep.
On here as well. Uncle A-Dog. Why is it Uncle A-Dog?
So the story goes, I mean, A-Dog is also a myth and a legend in the paddling community. He's an amazing athlete. I mean, all that my race partners are.
Sure.
But he's an amazing athlete. He's done triathlons. He's done running races. He's done cycling races. But he wasn't ultra competitive in the paddling world at the beginning. I mean, he did well. He did fine. But he always was. He's his own character. This guy's, right?
I love it.
Those who know A-Dog. So the first year he did the race in 2007, I met him during the race, and he had a bicycle taken apart and strapped to the back of his handmade wood strip kayak. He and his buddy Black Coffee Dave, they finished the race, reassembled their bikes. They had little kayak trailers that mounted to the back of their bikes.
Do not tell me they drove home.
And they rode the Katy Trail home, pulling their kayaks behind them.
That is so savage. After having felt the way that I did coming off of the race, the idea of spending another 4 or 5 days on the Katy Trail pulling them home sounds horrible.
A few years later, he and Black Coffee decided they wanted to build a boat completely out of trash. So they scoured dumpsters and recycle bins, and they built a 25, 30 foot long canoe built out of blue 55-gallon drums.
Trash boat.
They found, oak floor boards that had been, discarded, and they used that for their keel. And the only thing I think they had to buy was some of the like the bolts and the
Yeah.
screws, right? But everything else part of that boat was, even the seats were like old pieces of foam that they had found in a dumpster or something like that. And so they paddled that. They finished the race. They cut it up with a reciprocating saw and threw it away,
Oh my God.
and then got on their bikes and rode back.
You all are built different. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. So that's just the 340. There's all these other races too across the country. The Texas Water Safari was kind of how I started considering an episode like today. I'd never done it before. It's if the MR340 is labeled as the world's longest nonstop river race, paddle race, the Texas Water Safari, it kind of bills itself as the world's toughest kayak canoe race. And in 2017, you finished third in that race.
Third in the tandem. We finished 13th overall.
13th overall. Okay. And then you were 25th place in 2024. So you did that just last year.
Let's see. No, in 2022 and 2023, I did it with John Boogie.
Okay.
And that was, I can't say enough amazing things about this man. He's done the race. When we did it together, it was his 46th and 47th consecutive time doing that race. Last year he did it. It was his 48th. So he's got 2 more years to go to hit 50 consecutive years. I mean, he's forgotten more about paddling than I'll ever know.
That's insane.
I learned so much from him, had such a great time. I can't say enough great things about John and what I've learned from him, and the fact that he wanted to, race with me. I mean, yes, I've had a lot of success in a lot of races, but in Texas, I mean, the depth of talent in Texas, I don't even hold a candle to a lot of those guys. And what you have to go through in that race. I mean, look at it. I kind of compare the MR340 like a road bike race.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, you could get in your boat and never get out. Theoretically.
Sure.
On the Texas Water Safari, you're in and out of your boat no less than 100 times.
Yeah.
And you've got there's probably 20 portages. Some are very treacherous. The last 5 miles, you have to go through the bay, which is always a disaster. There's times where you've got to take shortcuts because there's log jams and you're literally wading through ankle deep or knee deep or sometimes chest deep water. There's fire ants, there's snakes, there's alligators. I mean, it's insane.
That is insane. And yeah, I've just watched a few YouTube videos on it. And I mean, that it was enough to charge me up to think about doing it. And then I don't know. The MR340 was more than I bargained for, so I don't know if I'd be interested in doing that. But it was really incredible to see these statistics. But you're not only doing that, you've also placed first overall in the 3rd annual Mississippi River 150 race, sponsored by Paddle Dynamics. So that was done in a Paddlehawk boat.
That's right. We did it in the Quattro, which is the 4-man Riverhawk boat. We did that with Judd Steinbeck, Wally Wardrick, and Paul Cox. Paul's one of my longtime racing partners. We've done several races together. And so, yeah, it was the 3rd year that they did that. It's 150 miles. It starts 3 p.m. on Friday and then finishes whenever you finish. But that's a fun one. And there's several portages there. It's on the Mississippi River, but it's way up north. So
Sure.
it goes through Minneapolis.
Yeah, and the river looks completely differently the further north you go, right?
Yeah.
It's not as muddy and...
No, yeah, one up in that area, it's smaller. It's more like the Kansas River.
Mhm.
I would say one of my other races that I'm really, really proud of and happy to have done. We did it twice. I did it with Paul Cox both years, and that's the Great Alabama 650.
Yes. Oh, this is the...
Yeah.
So what is this? We have a governor's...
There's a big framed picture of a resolution from the House of Representatives of the state of Alabama, signed by the governor, and this was done. We did that race in 2020. I think 2020 and 2021. We won it overall both years, and we set the course record. We did it in, I believe, 5 days, 17 hours and 22 minutes, I think.
5 days?
5 days, 650 miles.
Oh my
No, I'm
gosh.
sorry, 4 days, I think. Yeah, it
That
was
is
four,
a
4 days.
that is a
It was
long
just under
race.
5. It was just under 5 days. We slept for 7 hours during that 5-day stretch.
I'm gonna let that sink in a minute. I slept for right at 5 hours over the course of our 62-hour run on the 340, and was hallucinating. Didn't think that was possible pre-race and whatnot. So we can only imagine what you all went through
The
mentally.
best sleep of my life was this 30-minute nap we took somewhere somewhere in the middle of the Alabama Delta. We couldn't really find a place to pull over. It was a pile of rocks under a scraggly tree. It was about 95 degrees, and we were both starting to nod off pretty darn good. And so we said, let's just pull over and have a quick nap. We used our life jackets as a pillow, and we set the alarm for 30 minutes on our phone. At the second my head hit the PFD, gone. And those pile of rocks I was sleeping on, it felt like the best air mattress ever.
No Princess in the Pea for you.
Not there, no.
That is amazing. Okay, so I'm looking at a paddle here too. Can you tell me about this paddle?
Yeah, this is a wooden paddle. It's just a normal, like you get at Walmart type of paddle,
straight
right?
shaft,
Straight shaft, the whole 9 yards,
wooden.
right? But what's neat about it is it's got this mural on the blade. It's a picture, a hand painted picture of a bridge going over a river with the trees and on each side, and it says Wetumpka,
Okay.
painted in script. And the city of Wetumpka, it's a small town just north of Montgomery, Alabama.
Yep.
It's a population of like 7,500 people. Okay, but its kind of claim to fame is that it was the where the filming of a movie called Big Fish came out it was a 2003 movie.
I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, so
or hearing about that movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a great movie, but it's with Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito's also in it. Helen Bonham Carter is in it. I think Steve Buscemi was in it. So it's a good movie.
A-listers.
Yeah, and so that's kind of their claim to fame, right?
Yeah.
And they still have the set. You can like the thing they built looked like the old downtown or whatever. It's still there, so you can go see it.
Right on.
But when Paul and I got there to Wetumpka that first year of the Alabama 650, the mayor and the art teacher of the high school met us at the bottom of the boat ramp and presented us with these paddles. And so I have it hanging up on the wall behind my desk at home.
That's awesome.
And it's just one of these things, like the kids in the art class painted these, and they came down and gave it to us. And like, this is better than any trophy, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is really cool, right?
Yeah.
And the kids painted it, and they were so excited to give it to us, right? So this is like one of the best things I've ever received at a race.
The difference between a trophy and a relic maybe is, the line is fine, but it's significant.
Yeah, no, when someone makes something for you, I mean, I always, I'm terrible with gifts, partly because I don't know what to get somebody if they have everything they need, or whatever, right?
Same. What do you get the man who has everything?
Right. But I like to give gifts that are very personal, right? And so, I mean, I had an employee of mine one time, a few years ago. Her husband built custom cutting boards, and she knows I'm into food. She knows I like to cook.
Yeah.
And so she worked with my wife secretly behind, like I didn't know, it's a surprise. And they engraved Midwest paddle racing on the middle of the cutting board. And it's this big, huge, nice cutting board with the drip tray along the edge, and the little bowl you slide underneath. So now it's like anytime I do my barbecue, like big briskets, big ribs, like
do
whatever,
I
bring that with me. So, last week, earlier this week, one of my employees had a very significant birthday. And so, she's a great employee, and everybody loves her. So a couple of the ladies had said, like, hey, we should do a surprise party for Hannah. And so, I made a bunch of barbecue at home on Sunday, brisket, ribs, pulled pork.
Oh, wow.
And I brought it to work, and then I brought that cutting board with me. And, it's just like, I'm always going to remember that. I'm always going to remember the lady who made that for me, and her husband. And because that's going to be with me for my whole life. Right.
And so, you think about it every time you get it out.
Every time you use it. Right. So like the same thing with this paddle, like I'm never going to forget that. Right. It was really, really cool.
That's awesome. Okay, and so lastly, then you are the co-owner of River Hawk Boat Shop. What is that?
So A-Dog and I own Riverhawk Boat Shop. Um, it was actually started back in 2011. Ryan Slabos and Yancey Scroggins had this idea to make the fastest flat water racing boat that exists. So Matt Dressler and I, Wally Wardrick, Slabos, and Yancey all went in and bought a mold from an outrigger mold from somewhere in California, Hawaii. Brought it back to Kansas City. Slabos and Yancey spent a couple years redesigning the bow and the stern, the cockpit, and the outrigger, the AMA. And so I think the first boat they made was in 2013, 14. Ryan built his own personal boat in 14 and raced it in 15. And that's when he set the solo record in that. And so since then, Ryan and Yancey owned it for up until 2021. They decided they didn't, they kind of had fun with it, but they were kind of wanting to move on and had some other things they want to tackle in life. And A-Dog and I decided that we'd buy it from him. And so we did. And since then, we've made about 30 boats, 30 solo boats. We created a tandem boat now. We've sold 7 or 8 of the tandems.
Yep.
We can do a triple now as well. And we made a quattro, the 4-man boat, 2 years ago. And we've got a little secret project I'm working on right now called the Ocho. So I'll just let you stew on that for a little bit, but I'm not saying anything else.
That sounds fantastic. And so we're talking through with some people, like I said, they're just successful in one area. It's I was really good at this sport, and that qualifies me to talk about it. But there's a special place reserved for those people who were good at the sport and then go on to be great coaches, right? Or who are good at the sport and then contribute to the game in some other way. I mean, you're doing that in the Midwest for paddle racing with the racing community that you've developed with the races, the success you've enjoyed, the contributions to the sport with the fastest flat water boat. I said it at the beginning. I'll say it again now. It's an honor to have you here. This is really great to talk with you. So thank you for coming.
Thanks. No, I'd like to give back to the sport. When we first created Midwest Paddle Racing in 2012, and it's a family event. I mean, anybody who's come to my races knows that, yes, I'm the face of it, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Sure.
My wife, my parents, my kids, they all help.
Everybody's involved.
And I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have such a great supporting staff there with my family.
Yeah.
My mom and my kids are the timekeepers. Usually the kids are some good labor helping me set up and tear down and prep beforehand. My dad, his favorite thing is, when you go to the MR3 or when you go to the Midwest Paddle Racing races, I saw early on that it was people would finish a race, they're tired, they're hungry, they're sitting around, they're visiting a little bit, but they're kind of like, okay, I'm starving, I need to get some food, I'm like, oh, I got to go, whatever.
Yep.
And I said, there's got to be a better format for this. And so right away, I decided we are gonna provide a hot meal and a buffet to every racer. And I said, you know what? We'll just do it for anybody who's there. Like the racers, the family, the ground crew,
whoever's around, just
strangers in the parking lot, stray dogs, whatever, right? Like, so my dad always, stands there at the buffet line grilling hot dogs and sometimes telling off-color jokes and, in his overalls. And so, that's what we do. And we just make it a nice event where everybody has a good time. They don't have to worry about leaving unless they got something to do. But there's free pop, free water, free food. Just hang out, enjoy yourselves, have a good time. We do the awards, always do some kind of raffle giveaway thing. So
yeah, brilliant. All right. Well, awesome introduction. Thank you. Let's find out.
And by the way, on one more thing on the Midwest Paddle Racing, anybody under the age of 18 always gets a free entry.
Oh, brilliant.
So we like to, encourage the youth to come into the sport.
Yep.
And so that's one way we're trying to do it is, anybody who wants to bring a niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter, whoever, if they're under 18, it's a free entry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's learn a little bit more about you. Where were you born, raised? And we talked a little bit about how people would know you already. But what are
Yeah.
some ties you have to maybe small town America?
Well, I was born and raised in Raytown, Missouri.
Okay.
So right down the road here in Kansas City, suburb of Kansas City. Um, Lived there, graduated from Raytown High School. Um, we moved out to Grain Valley, Missouri, when we first had kids. Um, Went to Warrensburg, commuted to CMSU at the time. Now it's UCM,
Hmm.
and worked at Zarda Barbecue. Put myself through college. So
You mentioned Beth, and we were chatting. You met her in college, right?
that's right. That's right. Her mom was the director of financial aid, and we had a class together the previous semester. But I learned right away. I mean, I wasn't the best student in high school, and I realized right away in college if I was going to do good, I had to sit in the front row in the center seat to force myself to pay attention. And so she was in the back, and I didn't see her. She always could see me because she was behind me, but I didn't really see her. And I was dating somebody else at the time. The following semester, I had a night class. It was one of those 5-hour science plus lab
Yep.
classes, right? And so I walk in, and I had just gotten off work at Zarda's, smelled like barbecue, still in my barbecue clothes.
I
And
don't know that there's a woman alive that could resist that.
well, I mean, I would go into class, and like everybody was sitting around me was like, "Ah, you always smell so damn good," you know. So I walk in one day, and I sit down in class, and well, like I said, she was always the kind of front desk volunteer student worker
Yeah.
at the financial aid office. And so when I walked in the front door, their office behind the window was straight ahead, and so I could see her, she could see me coming in, and we started making eye contact a little bit, you know, here and there. And so then I sat down in class one night, and I look around, and everybody's got scantrons and pencils out. I'm like, oh crap, we have a test, and that I'd forgotten about. And so I looked around. I was like, hey, does anybody have a spare scantron or a spare pencil? And you know, there's not a lot of 19, 20-year-old
No.
kids who have spare pencils
Or are prepared.
or are prepared. So somebody luckily had a scantron because they come in packs of 5, right? But no one had a spare pencil. And I looked at my watch, and I'm like, okay, got like 3 minutes before class starts. I'm gonna go ask that hot chick at the desk if she's got a spare pencil. So I went up there and I asked, and she did. And she's like, well, you got to promise to bring it back. I said, I will. So went and took my test, came back, gave her the pencil. We talked a little bit, but I kind of lost my nerve. So went to the restroom, gave myself a pep talk in the mirror, came back and said, hey, I need to borrow your pencil again. And she kind of looked at me funny, but handed it to me. I said, I've got to have something to write down your phone number with.
Oh,
So, and the rest is
cheesy
history.
and savage
Yes.
all at the same time.
So 27 years later, here we are.
That's incredible.
Yep.
So how do you manage a life where you have so much going on professionally? You also have this side hustle, which is almost like a full-time hustle around Midwest paddle racing, training, and then, you know, the boat building, and then the family. How do you manage balance with all that?
Well, Beth would probably say that I don't always balance it perfectly,
Classic.
for sure, right?
Yep.
But no, she's been great. I mean, you know, she supports me. I'm an extrovert. She's an introvert.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of times, you know, she'll say, "Oh my gosh, can you just sit down and relax for a little bit?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, there's so many things to do. Let's like I'm a live life, enjoy life, grab it by the horns kind of guy."
That's obvious.
But you know, she's so she brings me back to center, and I've definitely calmed down in my later years. I'm 47 now, so you know, definitely I've learned to enjoy life. I used to, you know, when we would go on vacations as families, I would used to have the Mann family vacation guide.
Yeah.
You know, print out. Here's
Yep.
what we're gonna do. We have a
Yep.
schedule. You know,
Plan
like
it all.
bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
Right. And so now I'm like, you know what? We'll book the trip. We've got a few ideas to do and things to see, but it doesn't have to be such a, you know, Nazi itinerary.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So you background in food service and working at Zarda Barbecue. How do you apply that to making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? How do you PB and J?
You know, I am not a PBJ fan.
Good night.
Sorry.
You're the first one who said it, and I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. No, I'm not a sandwich guy, you know, like if someone wants to go to a deli, I'm like, ugh.
So what's the go-to Zarda Barbecue order then? No sandwiches, so you're not
Well,
no po' boy for you.
I do like sandwiches in barbecue,
Okay,
just not in like a deli sense. Like,
gotcha.
I like a Reuben, like a
Okay,
really good Reuben.
okay.
And by the way, if you ever smoked a corned beef brisket, that is the
I have.
that's the killer.
It's wonderful,
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
think that's technically pastrami, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the a corned beef is a brisket, right?
Yep,
So you
yep,
can buy
yep,
the flat or the point,
yep,
right?
yep.
But so if you smoke that like you smoke a brisket, you get all the bark and the char and all that smoke and everything.
So good.
Cut it up into corned beef burn-ins. Mhm. That's
Let's
that's it.
go.
Yes,
Is that your favorite meal then? That was
I
one of my
think
questions. Describe with we just kind of flowed right into rapid fire questions.
sure.
Describe the best meal that you've ever eaten.
So the best meal that I've ever eaten, Beth and I share this experience. We did a trip, and we'll talk about a couple other places I've lived. I think later on it's on the agenda.
Mhm.
I lived in San Antonio, Texas for 3 years, and then I lived in Copenhagen, Denmark for 3 years for work. And when we lived in Copenhagen, I had a global role, flew around a lot, had a lot of points.
Mhm.
And so Beth and I took a 17-day South Asian tour where we went to 5 different countries in 17 days,
Oh
uh,
my gosh.
or 4 different countries, sorry, 5 different cities. I went to Singapore, we went to Phuket, went to Bangkok, we went to Hong Kong, and we went to Macau. And
So much sushi.
we flew we flew all the way to the furthest and then started in Macau, which after so many hours of flying, we then had to take a ferry from Hong Kong to Macau. Macau's the little kind of casino island.
Yeah.
One of the James Bond episodes is
Yeah.
set in Macau, right?
Yeah.
And we were so tired and exhausted, but we were hungry as heck. And so we went up to this restaurant that was at the top of the Sofitel where we were staying, and we had this amazing Chinese dinner at one of their like 5-star restaurants at the top of the hotel. It was storming and raining outside. We had this amazing fresh meal. Went down to our room and it was like sleeping on those rocks in Alabama. It was like we just slept in this big, nice bed with the storm going on outside. And it was just an amazing meal and an amazing evening.
That's awesome. So, the one of the probe questions I had for you was what makes a meal memorable?
Hmm.
And is it the food or is it everything else? Right. I mean, you're talking about the food and that was wonderful, but
Yeah,
don't know if it hits the same
I-
without the storm and the travel and all these other pieces.
I was prepared for that question. So yes, food obviously is important. I mean, that's the foundation of a good meal.
Mhm.
But there's 2 other things that are quite important. One obviously is the company that you're with. So
Yeah.
your friends, your family, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Beth's Mexican, I'm Italian, so big meals, big family. We like that a lot.
That's awesome.
But the third piece that I'm very very big on is the ambiance.
Sure.
So I can roll with the punches. I can be flexible.
Mhm.
Some people would say less than others. Probably more flexible now than I was when I was younger.
Sure.
But if I go to a restaurant that I've never been at before, I will go to Google Maps and I will heavily research the pictures of the vibe of the restaurant,
Yeah.
and I will pick out areas in the restaurant I want to sit and areas in the restaurant that I will not sit in, because it's going to cost the same
Yeah.
no matter where you sit.
Yeah.
So I like my back against the wall. I like to sit in a booth. I don't want to sit underneath a light that feels like an interrogation light.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want it cozy. I want it nice. I want
Yeah.
it, and then so you put all those together, the company, the food, the ambiance, and that's how you have a great, memorable meal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So let's talk through racing. And I think I'll give you the opportunity to share, but I think you probably have a pretty similar approach to racing as you might meal. If racing is about more than just winning, trophies are probably important, but maybe can you talk about your perspective on success and internal rewards that matter to you the most about racing as opposed to just the trophies?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of reasons you do it. There's a lot of reasons you race. And so for me, something about, like you said, just finishing
Mhm.
is important. You're going to be challenged. There's things that aren't going to go right.
Mhm.
So I usually set multiple goals before a race.
What kind of goals?
Well, depending on how competitive we think we might be,
Right.
where do we want to finish, right?
Right.
Maybe there's a time goal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is a place goal. Maybe
Yep.
in your class. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's an overall goal, overall place goal. But then we just set different goals, and so rarely will I always set some reach goals, some stretch
Yep.
goals,
Yep.
right? Then set some more realistic goals.
Yep.
And so I might usually have 6, 8, 10 goals going into a race. And, how many of those goals can you check off the box?
Sure. And then they motivate you along the way.
That's right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not just winning. It's, getting in front of that guy or checking the time against your goal time.
That's right.
That's excellent.
And sometimes along the way, a new goal will pop up, a boat you didn't anticipate. Okay, we're going to beat that guy. We're going to beat that boat, right?
Yep.
Or stay ahead of
Yep.
this guy or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Or the unintended pain, suffering,
Mm-hmm.
departure from the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads me to another question. What's the difference between suffering, pain, and injury?
Right.
You've seen it all.
Yeah. I mean, I like to equate suffering more to the mental part of it.
Yeah.
Right. Because you've done it, you're out there, you've been paddling for hours, days, right?
Yeah.
And your brain's going to tell you all kinds of reasons to quit, right?
Yeah.
Well, why am I doing this? Let's just hang it up. Let's quit. I mean, everybody thinks that. I don't care who you are, right? Everybody has thoughts that go through their head about that. I should be at home. I should be doing this. I should be at work. I should be with the family.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of reasons that creep into your head. Well, the reasons why you should quit. It's like, something gets in your head and says all these reasons.
Yeah.
So that's the suffering part where you just have to kind of take that and really just push it out of your mind and keep it from infiltrating too hard.
Yeah.
Then you've got pain. And you're always going to have pain too. I mean, whether it's blisters on your hands or chafing on your body or something like that, right?
Sure.
And with the pain, it's different than injury, right? Pain you can come back from or grind through.
Yeah.
But if you've got an injury, it's important to know the difference. It's important to understand that. I DNF'd one time out of the 2007 to 2024. I missed the race in 2014 because I was moving back from Denmark and it had gotten postponed and I couldn't do the race that year.
Right.
So from 7 until 24, I've only not participated in the MR340 once. But I DNF'd once, and that was in 2019. It had gotten postponed, I think, 4 times. And so the race was in November, and we call it the ice race. I literally had icicles hanging off the bill of my hat. I had icicles hanging off the amas.
This hat?
Not yet. Well, that was the only year. So I have sitting next to us, I have a straw cowboy hat. And that is always the hat that I wear. I get a new one every year or two.
Okay.
But because it's usually destroyed by the end of the race. But on my long races, whether it's the Safari, the Alabama, the Mississippi, the MR340, I always wear a straw cowboy hat. It provides some circulation to cool your head. It's not so hot.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit on your head.
Yep.
I'm a bald guy,
Yep.
right? So if I wore like a baseball cap, it's right up against my skin.
Yep.
And that heat transfer from the sun usually
Goes
gets
right
pretty
into your
hot,
skin,
right?
yeah.
So the cowboy hat gives me some space in there, but it also provides a brim all the way around. So it protects my neck, my face, my ears, the sides of my face. And you can angle the hat to the left or the right or the back, depending on where the sun is as it's setting or rising.
Yep.
So I always wear a cowboy hat. But that one year, because it was cold and not hot, I did wear a normal baseball cap or a sports baseball style cap.
Yeah.
And so yes, the bill was in front and the water was like dripping down the edges of the bill, and it looked like
icicles
from the inside. It looked like I was wearing like a cobra head on my head, and the fangs of the icicles were hanging off the bill.
Oh,
right?
that sounds terrible. And you're sitting in 30-some degree water.
Yeah, and I didn't prepare well enough for it because it had not gotten that cold until that week of the race. And so I wore some neoprene gloves, which created just enough thickness, both on the inside of my fingers and then the inside of my thumb, that basically created a wider diameter of the paddle shaft effectively.
Yeah.
And so normally your thumb and your fingers can kind of overlap just a little bit
Yeah.
on the paddle. And so you're holding it and
You got a little
pulling it with a
friction.
grip.
Yeah, you got a
right?
little friction there.
Whereas with this, I couldn't make contact with the two fingers. So it was like crab claws holding the paddle
Yeah.
instead of a full grip around.
Well, you
using
blew
that
out your
finger
forearm
strength.
muscles then?
Both sides on both arms, those forearm muscles that come from the inside of your wrist and kind of come up to the center of your forearm.
Yeah.
They were just absolutely on fire. And I could feel, as I moved my wrist up and down, I could feel the tendon inside the sheath go.
Oh, no.
And so I got to Franklin Island, which was just over halfway.
Yeah.
And I could tell, like, this is not good. Like, they were so swollen, and so much inflation. I had to pull out.
And there's so much race left after Franklin.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 miles past halfway. So,
Yeah.
I got just barely half. And then I said, this is going to cause some serious injury if I continue.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, I mean, at a high level, I feel like I've got some answers already just chatting with you about it, but why do people do this? Why do you do this? Why do people do this? Like, what's the real goal here?
I think the real thing is to push your body beyond what you think is capable, to see how far you can push yourself.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I think no one does this. Well, I think everybody does this to a degree to have some internal goal. See what you're made of, right? How hard can you push yourself?
Yeah.
And because let's face it, I mean, we live in a society and a time now, and we're a very lucky, we live in a very lucky country.
We're kings and queens,
right?
We live like,
and most of us have, even if it's a tough job, like a manual labor job.
Yeah.
I mean, I've laid concrete, worked in the restaurant business, done construction in my younger life. I mean, it's still nothing like pushing yourself for days on end.
You're right.
And so I think there's something in there, and most of us, probably have office jobs or whatever.
Yeah.
And so getting outside that quote unquote safe, cushy lifestyle, and getting out there, pushing your body,
kind of find out what you're made of.
Exactly. Right.
So you talked about your grandpa Joe. Were you named after your grandpa Joe?
Yeah.
And I mean, he had a really significant influence on your development, right? How did his kind of teachings and you spending time out with him outdoors influence your desire to do this?
So he was a big hunter. He hunted for pheasant and quail. He's a bird hunter and an excellent fisherman. My dad was also a pheasant and quail hunter, and so I didn't do a whole lot of hunting with them. By the time I got to be the age where I could go hunting, he was kind of getting older, and my dad was getting busy with work.
Yep.
And so I went a couple times, but I still went fishing with him. Went canoeing with my dad in the Ozarks on some float trips. So got experience there, and so my grandpa Joe was he was Italian. They came over back in the early 1900s. He had 13 brothers and sisters. He was and he was born on December 13th, 1913.
Oh my gosh.
So his lucky number was 13. I was named after him. And so I very early on, like, I don't remember when my lucky number was not 13. So it's always been 13. So my boat number, I've always raced as boat number 1300.
Yeah.
And so,
when you were pulling in the driveway, I happened to notice your license plate on your truck, JM
1300.
1300.
Yeah.
All right.
And my grandpa Joe's last name was Patti, Patti. It's a small town in Sicily where they came from. And his license plate always said JP13 or 13 JP13.
How about that? So how did you get then? So that develops your love for the outdoors. You developed the love for racing, or you developed the love for canoeing, paddling, right? Spending time with him. How did you get to the point where you decided you wanted to race?
So I started doing when I was 18, 19, a couple buddies and I from the barbecue restaurant, we started going on float trips down the Ozarks. And again, I'm a very big planner. I like logistics. And so we would go do, and again, I didn't like the float trips where you get dropped off in the morning and you paddle for a little bit and then you're done.
Mm-hmm.
We would do multi-day float trips. So we would prepare for being on the river for 2, 3, 4 days. We'd plan all the food and the coolers and the whatnot.
Yeah.
Rope swing kits. I always had a rope swing kit in my boat that had hammers, nails, little 2x4s already cut rope. So enough to build 3 or 4 or 5 rope swings.
Yeah.
And find a good tree, and I'd monkey up the tree and build steps and tie the rope, and we'd go, swing off the rope. So we did that from, probably 6, 7, 8 years. In fact, when Beth and I got married, I didn't want to have a bachelor party. I said, I just want to have a bachelor float trip. So that's all we did. We just went down and went to the Ozarks and stayed on the river, found a good gravel bar and camped and had a fire and all
That's
that stuff.
awesome.
But we would always, at the end, find a resort that had some kind of big, huge cabin at the end.
Yeah.
Where all of us could stay in that one big cabin. And usually and so I found a couple places over the years where we kind of went back and forth between these 2 or 3 places.
Sure.
And so if there was, 8 canoes, 10 canoes, there's usually, or I'm sorry, 4 or 5 canoes. There's usually 8 to 10 of us.
Yep.
And there was 2 bathrooms in the cabin, right? With 2 showers, right?
Everybody's got a bed,
Everybody's
get a shower.
got a bed, everybody gets a shower.
Yeah.
But the first boat in, those 2 guys would get the first 2 showers.
Oh, let's go.
And then the next boat in would get the next 2 showers, right? And so we, by the end of the last day, we kind of, okay, all right, now everybody stops.
Game on.
Everybody kind of is like, are you trying to paddle a little faster here? Oh, okay, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
And usually the last 2 or 3 hours would turn into a race because you really wanted to get those first 2 showers. I mean, you certainly didn't want to be shower number 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Grimy.
yeah. So we'd been out on the river for 2, 3 days, 4 days. And then it's like those last couple hours, now it's go time.
Yeah.
And I was always, usually the first or second boat. And so then I'm sitting at a business lunch one day. I was in procurement at the time, and somebody was, some vendor took me out to lunch and was trying to sell me on a phone system for the facility. And, small talk, sales guy, well,
Sure.
what do you like to do? And I'm like, oh, I like to canoe, And he's like, oh, have you heard about this thing called the MR340? I'm like, what's that? And he's like, well, it's this 340-mile canoe race from Kansas City to St. Louis. And I'm like, instantly, I forgot everything else that he was talking about. I'm like, tell me more about this thing. He's like, yeah, my buddy Scott Mansker, he started it, and it's this thing. So I came home that night and I was like, Beth, dude, I just heard about this canoe race. And she's like, fine, okay.
Here we go.
Little did she know it would take over my life for the next 20 years. But yeah, no, that's how I first heard about it. And so then the rest is history.
That's awesome. So how is your perspective of, there's a big difference between finishing strong the last couple of hours on a boys trip and doing what you're doing. How was the introduction to, I call it ultra marathon paddle racing, to where you're at now? How has your perspective changed over the years?
I mean, that first year I did it was absolutely magical. I think anytime you do a different race for the first time, you have that sense of magic, that sense of wonder. Everything's new.
Yeah.
You're learning different things. So the first year I ever did the safari, it was that way. The first year that Paul and I did the Alabama race together, that was that way. First year I did the MR340 was that way.
Right.
And so, like I said, the first year I did the 340, I did it in 61 hours and some change. I think I got 4th in the men's solo. But again, back then there was only like 75 boats.
Yeah.
I mean, there was maybe
like
only
500 boats
30,
now, isn't there?
30 soloists or something,
Yeah.
right? And so, I did fine. But now I think if you're 61 hours, you're not even going to break the top, 10, right?
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I thought, okay, 50 hours was a big, like if you can break 50, sub 50. So the next year I came back and I said, okay, I want to try this again, do a little better. So I was able to get 49 hours and some change. So I
Wow.
broke the 50-hour mark. And then, and that's when it kind of the bug bit me, and I just started asking questions to all the veterans. That second year, in 2007 and 8, I did the 340. And then in 2008, I moved to San Antonio, Texas.
Yep.
And I kind of heard about the Texas Water Safari. Surprisingly, I never did the safari when I was down there, until the last year. Wally Woodrick and I did it as a novice team.
Yeah.
They have a division called novice. If you've never done the race before, you can enter what's called the novice division. It has to be an aluminum canoe. You can't have a rudder. You have to only single blade, and you have to be a team. of two. So, and both of you should have never, or could have never done it before. So,
That is that is a recipe. I don't want to say for disaster, but knowing some of the other technology that's available and whatnot. I mean, like
and
that's a bold pressure to put on people who've never done it before.
And back then, they changed it in 2014. Now you're allowed to get food and water and medical supplies deemed necessary by your ground crew. You can receive those three things, but that's it. You can receive no assistance from your ground crew. They cannot help carry your boat. They cannot
Yeah.
help move your boat.
Yeah.
They cannot give you any kind of, if you're out of batteries for your GPS or something, can't get it. If you have a damage to your boat, you better have whatever you need to fix that
it.
on the boat,
Yeah.
right? But before 14, the only thing you were allowed to get was ice and water.
Yeah.
That's it. So we did the race that year. I think it took us 70 hours or 68 hours or something like that.
Oh,
and so all the food we needed to eat, we had to have it in the boat.
yeah.
I mean, you just think about what food tastes like after it's been floating in your canoe for 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh, it was horrible.
Well, and then that's the type of thing that people who are right now thinking about this coming 340 or getting ready for the shootout or, freedom race or whatever leading up to the 340 this year, the 340 Facebook page,
Mhm.
it's starting to blow up with, the rookie questions. I was there, asked them, and the community is so great for answering questions, right?
Mhm.
They're asking it all the time. But now that you've done it, for those people who've never done it before, or those people who have done it and want to learn something from a vet and a pro, how do you plan a successful race strategy? Kind of what specific factors do you take into account when you're planning for a race?
So I like to break my race down into segments. Like, so how do you eat the elephant? Right?
Yeah, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And so, so I'll give you mine, how I've approached the 340.
Yeah.
It'll be different, obviously, for different folks, but I try to break stops into somewhere between 5 to 7 hours. So you only need the first couple of years I did the race, I had so much crap in the boat. It was like I could have been on like a 20-week excursion.
Right.
I had so much stuff. The kitchen sink was back there.
Mm-hmm.
So now all I have in the boat is the bare minimum, what I need to get from here to the next stop, which is, like I said, 5 to 7 hours.
Right.
And so I break it up into kind of like day shift 1, night shift 1, day shift 2, night shift 2.
Yep.
And then, and I will take off the cowboy hat and put on a baseball hat in the evening.
Yep.
Just to kind of have a different change of what is fitting on my head. I'll wear a belt PFD, like an inflatable.
Yep.
That's not inflated yet, obviously, during the day when it's hot. And then I'll take that off when I do the change at night. So typically I usually get to Miami around between 5 and 6, 7 p.m.
So you stop at Miami.
I do a what we call a shift change.
Yep.
So from day to night. And so my first shift change will be at Miami. I'll switch the PFDs. I'll switch the hats.
Yep.
Oftentimes I'll switch shirts.
Yep.
To get all the salt that's accumulated through sweat.
Yep.
Right. I'll re-lubricate. It's called Aquaphor.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Comes
Very
in
familiar
comes in a
with
little
it.
tub. When I start the race, you put that everywhere.
Yep.
Like armpits,
Yep.
crevices,
Yep.
on your feet, in
Yep.
between your toes, all
Yep.
over the place. And that'll help top of your thighs, usually because you get a lot of water on your thighs,
Yep.
And so that protects your body and protects your skin. And so I'll kind of redo a little bit
Yep.
at the shift change. And then we go through the night. Then usually Hartsburg is where I'll do my day shift change.
Yep.
Usually get to Hartsburg somewhere between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. And then I'll put the straw cowboy hat back on. I'll put the belt PFT back on, clean out the boat, right?
Yeah.
So I try to make those shift change stops less than 5 minutes. And then we usually have a stop once as a resupply in between. So, usually it's Napoleon is where I'll get kind of a handoff. I'll just pull up real quick, stop at I won't get out of the boat, but I'll just pull up real quick,
Yep.
give them my bag of trash. They'll drop some more food in my lap, and I'm
Gone.
off. Right. So it's a very quick, like 1 minute or less,
Yeah.
kind of in the middle of those what I call day shifts or night shifts.
Yeah. So
So
you're not getting out of the boat at all until Miami?
that's right.
Good Lord.
I'll jump out, stretch my legs. I'll usually stand in the boat ramp and rinse off, change my shirt. Then I'll get out, dry off real quick, put on the Aquaphor, jump back in. And then again, the next time will be Hartsburg that I do that same thing.
Yeah.
So that year that I set the record in 2018, the solo record, I wasn't even thinking about the record at that point.
Right.
You know, it was just about, trying to win the men's solo.
Right.
I had won the solo in 17, but I was doing it again, and I wanted to do a double solo win.
Yeah.
And so when I left Hartsburg, I realized I was just right on track for the solo record. I mean, it was
Right.
just right there,
Yeah.
right? And so my next plan resupply point was Mocaine. So I pulled up quickly. They dropped stuff in my lap. And again, I was just right on it was like chasing the ghost,
Yeah.
right? Like in Mario Kart. If you ever
Yeah.
played Mario
Oh, yeah,
Kart,
the
right?
shadow.
Yeah, the shadow, right?
Yeah.
So like I was just seeing Ryan Slabos's shadow. Like, where was he? What was the time?
Oh my
How close
gosh.
were we? And so
And suddenly you're back in the last 2 hours of the
exactly,
first canoe race.
exactly. So I'm coming around the corner to Hartsburg, to Herman, and that usually is my third and only time. So I'll plan on like really stopping, cleaning out the boat, doing the shift change, like I
Sure.
said, at Miami, at Hartsburg, and at Herman.
Yeah.
But I realized at that point that I was so close. Like I'm like, if I stop at Herman and spend 5 minutes,
You could lose it.
that might be the difference.
Yeah.
And my crew was ready. They had all the stuff, they had everything there. And I didn't even get close. Like I stayed way far left,
Yeah.
made sure they knew, they saw me. I'm like, I don't have time,
Yeah.
making the go sign, like
Yeah.
I'm just going, right? And
Yeah.
they're like, don't you need food? Don't you need water? I'm like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, this was like the a calculated risk versus
Yeah.
reward
I've got
strategy.
adrenaline.
Right.
I've got
I had enough that
glycogen stores. I'm
Mhm.
just going to use it all.
Yep. And I knew I had enough stuff still in the boat that I could go another probably 20, 30 miles with food and liquids.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember where it was at that point, but there was another spot where I just basically said, throw it in my lap, right?
Yeah.
And just wherever we had planned. And so they threw it in my lap and I kept going. So that year in 2018, I was only out of the boat twice for a grand total of 11 minutes.
That's incredible. And those of you who are planning, like, my gosh, I hope you're listening. That was gold. I mean, we had a race strategy that didn't look anything like that. We planned for, a few hours to sleep here and there and whatnot. And there's just, like I said, you're just built different. There's a mentality here that comes with it. It's the planning, it's the structure, it's the coordination, it's everything. And so that's a good question.
But you got to have a good ground crew.
You do. That's critical. And our wives were our ground crew, and they were there, and they recognized things in you that you don't even know you need. I got to the point where I didn't want to eat anything that was in my bag, to your point.
Oh, 100%.
And Carissa was just trying to get food in me. So she was stopping, getting cheeseburgers, like anything that was just different. So I could just eat it.
Yep.
As opposed to not eating what was in my bag and then bonking
No,
20 miles down.
If your plan is to eat, the same stuff for 40, 50, 60 hours, no, good luck. Your stomach's going to say, man, F you. I do not want no more of this, right? So I think it's important, especially, I mean, if it's under a certain amount of, if it's under 15, 20 hours, then you do your race food. That's all you need. Fine.
Yeah.
But if it's longer than 30 hours, I mean, you've got to have some real food.
You've got to.
You have to.
Yeah.
So when I do my shift changes, that's typically, or even on the drop bags, there's always going to be something there from a burger, a hot dog, a slice of pizza even.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have some real food.
Yeah.
You just have to have something in your stomach, like kind of filling your stomach. It can't just be, goos and gels and mixed stuff, powder stuff. Right.
Yeah. Those paddle stops, where the local Boy Scouts
Mm-hmm.
were
Mm-hmm.
there, or some, community philanthropic league was there. They were critical. I got a hot uh, burger at Waverly, a breakfast burrito at, you know, Washington, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and it was critical. I mean, I say that those sorts of things make the difference. And so, I mean, you've answered the question already. I mean, your logistics and planning and this experience is a very significant part of the reasons that you've been successful.
And I would say too, I mean, there's been times where I, early on, where I'd pull up and say, "Oh, hey, I need whatever," and I mean, you pack the car for the ground crew
Yep.
with like everything you could
Everything.
possibly need,
Yep.
right? Don't put it in your boat, put it in the car,
Yeah.
right? And then if you need it, they've got it,
Yep.
right? Um, and so we realized early on, there's a couple times where you pull up and stop and say, "Oh, hey, where's the bag with the extra shirt or my hat blew off or
Yeah.
whatever,"
Yeah.
right? Oh, it's back up in the car. Well,
Yeah.
that's a 5 minute. Somebody's got to run up to the car
Yeah.
because those boat ramps are usually packed and you're parking far away.
Yep.
And so early on, they get one of those little folding wagons or whatever, right? And you bring all that crap down when they see me coming in or my team coming in, they know what we are expecting to receive.
Right.
But then they've also got you know little boxes or bags or suitcases or whatever all lined up right there at the top of the ramp
Yeah.
in case there's anything else I might need
Just ready for
ready
you.
for you.
Yeah.
Tools, batteries,
Yeah.
spare clothes, extra food,
Yeah.
whatever. Because maybe you pull up and say, I can't eat another Cliff Bar, right?
Yeah.
I need this instead, or
Yeah.
what? Or throw me an extra, fruit cup, or throw me an extra Gatorade, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So have your ground crew have more than what they think you need,
Yeah.
ready to go at that boat ramp to get you back on the river fast.
That's brilliant. So we've talked through that. I mean, it really is, even though you're a solo racer, it is still a team deal.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And the bigger the team you have, so if you've got a tandem team, there's a lot of folks who do it for the first or second time, or who say, well, oh, my buddy and I, we're both going to get a kayak or whatever, and we're going to paddle together and do the MR340 together and have the same ground crew. I've seen it fall apart so many
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
because someone's always going to feel like crap at some point,
Right.
and very rarely do you and your buddy feel like crap at the same time.
Yeah.
And so someone gets tired and goes, "Oh, I can't, I got to stop." And someone's like, "Dude, I'm just starting to feel good."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're ever doing it the first time and you really want to do it with somebody, get a canoe, get a boat where two people can be in the same
Yep.
boat,
Yep.
because one guy might have to paddle a little lighter and the other guy can kind of pull the other dude along, or
Yep.
vice versa.
Yep.
Right. But you're always together.
Yep.
You're in the boat.
Yeah.
Right. Together. Because if you're separate, then someone goes ahead or someone falls behind or someone feels
Yeah.
guilty about hanging behind,
Yeah.
or blah, blah, whatever. Right.
Yep.
So I would say, just think about that as if you're a new racer, who's wanting to do it
Yeah.
with a buddy, do it together.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And in Stuart and I's episode where we talked through our experience on the race, um, what you just described there is exactly what happened to us. We hit Franklin Island, and he had to tune me up mentally because I
mhm.
was complaining and frustrated and tired and whatnot, and he said the things that I needed to hear to
Right.
feel like crap for a little bit, but then ultimately kind of get back on the team bus. And then after that, he was talking about how he felt like crap after Franklin Island.
Mhm.
And, we were able to sort of pull one another along. And that's it's critical. Yeah.
Right.
The canoe is the way to go for
Yeah.
the first time tandem team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I would say if you have a team of 2 or 3 or more or whatever, right? What we found is to be good is you always have. I mean, not everybody has the fortune of having a large ground crew, right? People have to take off work, they have to take off time of their lives, et cetera, to do it. But if you can find more people to be part of that team, that helps. And usually, like, the best recipe is you have one ground crew person dedicated to each paddler in the boat,
mhm,
right? So if
mhm.
you've got two people in the boat or 3 people in the boat, let's say,
Yeah.
you need one person dedicated to each of those people.
Yeah.
So paddler A has a ground crew partner
Yeah.
who takes care of just them. Paddler B, same thing. Paddler C, same thing.
Yeah.
And then you want, the bigger your boat is, the more people you need, but then you also need an extra set of support behind those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm solo, I want 2 people minimum on my ground crew. I want one guy who's focused on my nutrition, my food, my liquids, what I need. And then I need another guy who's making sure he takes care of that guy.
Yeah. Just
right. As the navigator or whatever. Right.
Yeah. So everything is considered and thought through.
Exactly. Because
there's so much.
If I've got only one person and they're worried about, where do I go to find this? Where do I get directions? How do I drive wherever? Now he's distracted from, what does Joe need in the boat, right? If that one person, all they have to think about is, what does Joe need? And then there's somebody else who's like, okay, what does Chris need?
Yeah.
Right? Then Chris takes care of Joe, Bob takes care of Chris, et cetera, right?
So on. That's great. Okay, so we've talked through the preparation there, but nothing can prepare you for well, some things can prepare you. I guess that's the question. How do you prepare and train physically for the race? Because it's going to suck. And there's kind of an embrace the suck perspective that you got to just deal with. But I mean, are you cross training? Are you lifting? Are you running? All the above.
Yep.
And, Stuart, he was talking through this lady that we saw. She did not look like she needed to be out there, but she did it. She was able to successfully complete it, right? So it's possible to finish, but there's kind of like this direct relationship between how fast you want to go, how much fun you want to have, related to what kind of shape you're in. So how do you train mentally, physically for the long distance races like this?
Yeah. I mean, I think mentally at this point, I've done it long enough where that's a tough one to, like, I don't remember now how to, like, I just know, my body knows, right? Okay, it's going to be 40 hours or 50 hours or whatever, right? So mentally, I think that just comes with experience, doing it, right?
What's the techniques though? Even now, like, you're 30, 40 hours in, you're tired, it's nighttime, what do you play mental games? Do you chew gum?
I don't like music when I'm paddling, when I'm racing. It becomes noise and makes me fall asleep. I don't care if it's Metallica or,
whatever.
I cannot listen to music.
Okay.
Right. And so teammates that I race with, unfortunately, they're not allowed to listen to music.
Okay.
I can't do it. Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
And most don't. I mean, there's a couple that like it, but I think most folks who are serious racers, they just like, it's an extra thing to deal with. I don't have time to pick songs and push buttons and all that crap.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. I don't listen to music. But I do math in my head all the time.
Really?
So like, okay, here's what mile marker I'm at. I just passed this mile marker. It's been 10 miles. I mean, I have a GPS, but I also always have a laminated split chart in front of me.
So you can
so I can sit there and say, oh, okay, my average miles per hour from the last stop or the last mile marker to the next mile marker. And then I'll do the math. Okay, that took me X number of minutes or hours. Okay, so divide by this. And your brain gets deteriorating as the time goes. So sometimes you're in the middle of the math problem and you're like, where the hell was I?
Yeah, you got to start over.
You got to start all over again. But so I'm just keeping my brain engaged that way. If I'm solo, for sure. If you're with a partner, then you can have some talk and some conversation to keep each other, But again, that sometimes also distracts you from then you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, we've slowed down because we're too busy chatting. Okay, let's have 30 minutes of just focus, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, right? So, I've had a lot of race partners, and I mean, I don't think I've ever had a race partner that I've just got out of the boat and said, I'm never going to do a race with that guy ever again, right? I mean, typically, you're good friends ahead of time, or you know each other well enough, or you've had experience. But one of my best race partners that just seems like we just gel together really, really well is Paul Cox.
Okay.
So Paul and I've won the MR340 together in a 4-man boat. We've won the Alabama race together twice in a tandem boat. He was in the 4-man boat where we won the Mississippi 150 together.
Yeah.
So Paul and I've done 4 or 5 ultras together.
Yeah.
And it just seems like we just have this unsaid, connection of how to race, what to do, when to talk, when not to talk. He's a very level-headed guy, doesn't get frustrated easily. And there's times where, he's down or I'm down, but we know exactly what to do.
Yep.
And he's an amazing athlete.
That's awesome. And I used to climb, and I've still done some mountain climbing out in Colorado. I have a personal goal to climb all the 14ers in
Mhm.
Colorado. I've done about half of them.
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. But to your point about, what's his name? Joe Cox?
Paul Cox.
Paul Cox.
Mhm.
So we're running with Paul. I've got a buddy that it seems like every time I go, he just matches my
Mhm.
energy.
Mhm.
We're ready to turn around at the same time. We're ready to keep going at the same time. Other people may want to bail out just due to whatever reason. We'll hang in there, and what you're saying means so much. And sometimes you don't know what you got until you've suffered that fire together.
Mhm.
And that builds a relationship, right? So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
On the Alabama race, one year, he was getting cold at night one time, even though it's hot during the day.
Yeah.
I mean, there can be big swings,
Sure.
and so he started to get shivery and
Yeah.
get cold. And we were in a very tippy boat, and again, it was like in the middle of a swamp. We had seen alligators already, and he's like, we've got another 5 hours or 4 hours before we get to the next spot. We're supposed to see
Yeah.
our crew. And he's like, Joe, I've got to get that emergency blanket out and wrap it around my legs.
Yeah.
I'm freezing,
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, well, the emergency bag that's in, it was in a dry bag. It
In
was
the middle of the boat.
snapped in the center of the boat, snapped to the gunnel
Yeah.
in the center of the boat. I'm like, the only way to get to it is to crawl over there and get it, right?
Yeah.
And so we pulled over, and I'm like, well, this is the only spot. I mean, so we kind of pulled into it's like, it's a, water trail. There's no place to pull over. So as soon as you start getting into the brush,
Yeah.
you're still like 6 feet deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I was holding on to this little branch. Then I took my kayak paddle and I put it all the way down that I could into the mud.
Yeah.
And
Trying to keep the boat from tipping.
over.
Yeah.
So I got my hand on the top of the paddle, which is all the way down. I mean, the paddle's like the top of the paddle at this point is level with the canoe. So my right hand is level with the canoe with this paddle all the way down into the mud. Left hand is holding this branch up like this.
Yeah.
The boat's tippy. Paul's in the bow, so he turns around and has to crawl back into the center of the boat to unsnap this thing while he's shivering.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of laughing while I'm doing this, where some people would just be totally frustrated and say, just wait till the thing, we're going to tip over, there's alligators everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's incredible. And you grew, your relationship grew in that moment, right? It's a great
Absolutely.
memory. And, I've done some study on like masculinity and men needing to be tested in certain areas of their lives. And right, like you test your mettle, you see where you're at, and you can be in something that is scary or difficult and whatnot. And conventional wisdom would say that's a problem. This is something that I want to avoid. And then you come through it and you realize that was one of the best times of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most defining moments of our friendship or
Absolutely.
whatever. That's wonderful.
We were the last 50 miles of that Alabama race. You have to cross Mobile Bay, right? And I hate bays.
Yeah.
I hate big water. Like, just give me a flat water and I'll just paddle it forever, right? Give me portages in Texas. Give me snakes, alligators. I don't care. I don't like bays. I don't like big waves and having to mess with, right?
Yep.
And so, you go for 4 days paddling the Alabama race, and now you've slept, 7 hours. Now you've got another 50 miles to cross a bay. There's no current.
Yeah.
You're not getting any help from the water.
Yeah.
And we hit that bay, and it was a small craft advisory. We had 20-foot swells, one coming from
My goodness.
the northeast. We're going south, basically. One's coming from the northeast.
So rolling in behind
us.
Yeah.
Then there was another, because of the way the wind was hitting,
Yep.
there was like another smaller set of waves coming
Sure.
in from the southeast.
Sure. And then
So-
big boat traffic
and-
creating
yeah,
other
yeah,
waves and chop.
And so these two sets of there's like a 20-foot swells every I don't know, minute or so.
Yeah.
And then you've got these smaller ones every 30 seconds coming both from behind us
Yeah.
at a 45-degree angle, one off our back right, one off our back left.
Yeah.
And we were in an outrigger, but you know, he was just masterful. Paul was steering those waves, and our heads were on swivels,
Yeah.
trying to, where's the waves coming? We'd go down this 20-foot, like surf down the swell. We'd have to like lean over and brace and kind of surf down. And then as soon as we hit the trough, it was paddle hard again. Right.
Yeah. Can I qualify that for a second? I'm 50 miles at 5 miles an hour. You're talking
at least
10 hours.
12. It was more like 4.5 miles an hour. It took us 12 and 14 hours to cross that bay.
So we're not talking just 20 minutes of let's bear down and get through this. We're talking a day, a whole day worth of suck.
Yeah.
And
it's not, and it's, you got to be focused.
Yes.
You got to be on looking at those waves. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember one time Paul's like, okay, here comes this big wave. Get ready. I'm like, oh, get ready to paddle hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden I fell asleep. Like literally. and I was in front of him, and he just sees me. He's like, now. And I just went,
sleepy
like,
time,
fell
Joe.
over. Like I just like almost fell out of the boat. And
Sleepy
he's like, Joe, you know, and I'm like, what? He's like, did you just fall asleep in the middle of a wave? And I'm like, yeah, I did. Okay. I'm awake now. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. So you had a similar experience with buggy, right? In the, like when your boat flipped, like on
like
the
I
last,
said, I hate the bays.
I know, right?
They're my nemesis. So
but you actually flipped in that case, right?
Yeah. So John and I, the first year we did the safari in 2022 together, we had done great. We were in a standard canoe.
Yeah.
Not aluminum, but a standard, which is a spec. It's like 18 feet long.
Yeah.
I think 28 inches wide, whatever it is, right? Single blade only. And we entered the bay first in the men's tandem, or first in the standard class, First in standard class. And I think we were like 7th or 8th overall.
Okay.
Out of 100 plus boats.
Killing it.
You know, he's a 70-year-old guy, you know, that's kind of got a bad back.
Yeah. And you guys are feeling
in a standard canoe. I mean, we were ahead of 4-man team, 5-man teams. Like we were doing really, really well. We were literally a mile or less from the finish. Like we could see the lights. Like we could see it. It was right there, right? And this huge wave hit us broadside, tipped us over. We had a skirt on the boat. You have to snap like a skirt on the boat with little zip, you know, you're zipped in kind of with thing. So when the boat,
what's the name for that? They're like
it's a bungee, right? Type of deal, but it's basically just a big long skirt that's like snapped all the way around. And there's
spray skirt.
Spray skirt. Yeah. But it covers the entire canoe.
Yeah.
With 2 holes for where the paddlers are. And there's like a little kind of bag that's connected to this bracelet that comes up.
Yeah.
And you put it above your PFD and then zip it tight. So the water, when the bay waves splash on you, it doesn't go down into the canoe.
Yeah.
So the water there was a hole somewhere or like a snap or something. And so we could feel it starting to fill up, and we were like half mile away. We could see it. We were like right there. But the boat kept filling up with water. We could feel it going up on our ankles, then our mid calves. It got up to our knees in the boat. So now the boat's completely full of water, which is swinging back and forth. We get hit broadside. We tip over. So we're holding on to I'm holding on to the bow. He's holding on to the stern. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's dark. I mean, you're out. I mean, any normal person would be like, what the hell are you doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing out here? This is like, we've been awake for 2.5 days, you know, and we're hanging on to a canoe in the middle of a bay during a freaking wave storm, you know? And so he hung onto the bow. I'd go down underneath the boat with my hands on each side of the gunnels, like underneath.
Yeah.
And if I stretched my body out down all the way, so I was still hanging onto the gunnels, but I'm under the water the whole way. The bay is about 6 feet deep.
Yeah.
So if I went like this, my feet could touch. So I'm trying to walk the boat upside down to the edge, but you're getting pushed back the whole time with the waves. We were out there floating around, dicking around like that for probably 3 hours, 4 hours. I mean, so by the time we finally got pushed back to the thing, now we're 2 miles away. It's dark. We were exhausted.
Yeah.
So we pulled over, had to drag the boat up the side of the rocks and stuff. That was exhausting. So we finally, it was like, we looked at the clock and it was like 5 in the morning, and we just said, I mean, we should have finished 3 or 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
So we were exhausted. So we were freezing. So we wrapped up in the spray skirt, laying next to each other for warmth.
Yeah.
Took out our PFDs, set the alarm, went to sleep for an hour and a half till the sun came up.
Yeah.
Then we could see what the hell's going on.
Figure it out.
Got, had a little bit more clear mind, got back in the boat. So I think we still finished third in the men's in the C2 class. And then I think 21st overall, but like that was disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah. But you think through it now, you've done it. It sounds like a great story.
It was a great story.
It sounds like a awesome memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I say you can be going through literal earthly hell and then having the time of your life all at the same time.
Exactly.
I mean, it's so crazy.
And I think it takes a certain person to enjoy that.
Yeah.
I think some people would say, "Oh, this was horrible. I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
I'm so pissed off." But no, I mean, yeah, we were a little disappointed of the way it turned out compared to, what we had worked so hard for during the race and how close we were.
Yeah.
But hey, we finished.
You finished,
and that's the key.
That's one of the goals, right? Finish.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I've been contemplating doing an episode on type 1 fun, type 2 fun, and type 3 fun.
Mm-hmm.
Type 1 fun, you may stop me if you're familiar with this, but it's fun to do and fun to talk about. Type 2 fun is it's not fun to do and talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
Fun to talk about later.
Right.
And type 3 fun is it's not fun to do and we don't want to talk about that.
Right. That's funny.
So we're kind of riding the line between type 2 and type 3 fun here.
Exactly.
So very good. Okay, so you've learned a lot. I mean, personal reflection, perspective on this. You kind of set these goals. You want to race. You want to do this, but you're not racing this year.
That's right.
So
I'm doing a few races.
Okay.
I'm doing the Mississippi 150 again.
Okay.
I think I'm going to do it with Wally Wordrick.
Okay.
So and again, that's a fun one. I mean, it's not that long. It's only, maybe 20 hours.
Yep.
Right. So, and my wife's going with me. She went with me last year. We're going to take kind of the week before to kind of have a little vacation up in Minneapolis. So, and then we'll do the race that weekend. So that's kind of my only big one for the year. But yeah, the MR340 changed the rules this year where you're not allowed to choose your own boat number. And that really,
we've talked about that. That's important.
That really irked me. Yeah. Like my boat number, I've never not been 1300 on the MR340.
Right.
And even on the other races, I've always had the number 13. If you can't choose exactly, like when we did the Alabama race, for example, they just give boat numbers. Only 20 boats do that race. So they number the boats 1 through 20. And so when we signed up the first year, I asked the race director, "Hey, can we be number 13?" And he's like, "Sure, that's no problem."
Yeah,
I mean,
whatever.
We've only had 8 boats sign up so far. So I was going to give you number 9, but if you want 13, here you go.
Here you go.
The next year I said, "Hey, can we be 13 again?" And he's like, "Well, usually if you're the returning champ, you get to be boat 1. But if you really want 13, okay." So we got 13, right?
Okay.
When John Boogie and I did it, he just wanted the number of how many times he had done that race. So, and I wanted 13.
Yeah.
But you could choose your number. So
1348 or
and 1347. That's
okay,
right. So we did it 2 years in a row, right? So we were 1346 the first year and 1347 the next year.
Wonderful.
Right?
Yeah.
So this year, the MR340 said, "No, you can't choose your own boat number. We're going to assign them."
Yeah.
And there was a big kerfluffle online, and a lot of people said, "Hey, we don't like this." And some people said, "Hey, who cares?" Whatever, right? And so my own form of silent protest is I'm not going to do the 340 this year, and I'm hoping they reverse the rule.
Yeah.
But
I think that'll leave an echo. I mean, that's an echo.
I'm hoping.
I'd say you're an icon in the race. Just a silent protest that way it's meaningful. Maybe. But I don't know.
I don't know how important I really am, but I don't think it's, I mean, obviously if me doing it compared to someone who's like their second year doing it, okay, maybe, but I mean, trust me, I've made my thoughts known. And there's a lot of folks on the board who I've talked to, who understand, and it was kind of a split decision. I'm hoping that they reverse course next year. The race director, who I think was the one pushing it, I saw that a month after registration opened and the decision was made,
They moved
She
on.
quit.
Yeah.
She went somewhere. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, talking about throwing a hand grenade in the foxhole before you run away. I don't,
Right.
yeah.
But true Joe Mann style, though, you're not abandoning the community of racers just because you're not racing.
That's right.
So what are you doing?
So my good buddy Shane Camden, who owns Paddle Stop in New Haven.
Yep.
I was talking to him in October, and he was kind of thinking about doing the race this year again. He builds stand-up battle boards and wood strip canoes.
Yep.
And so after I decided I wasn't gonna do the 340, I was talking to him about it, and he's like, I said, hey, you still thinking about doing the race? And he's like, yeah, I think so, but I've got to find somebody to kind of watch the restaurant and watch the bar, And I said, we kind of talked and we came up with a plan. So he's still going to have his employees run the bar itself, and I'm not going to have to worry about that part at all.
Yep.
Right. But I'll be there as the kind of to make sure everything runs the way it's supposed to.
Yep.
But then I'm going to run the kitchen, and I'm going to run what's called Pit Stop 1300. So I can still have my number. Okay. But we are going to make the best pit stop that you have ever seen on the MR340.
That is awesome.
So with my years of experience, I know what people feel like and what they need when they stop somewhere, especially if it's, I think there's about 70 miles left for the race from New Haven to St. Charles. And there's not a lot in between there.
Okay.
Right. Now, New Haven is only about 20 miles past Herman. Most people, that's a big stop at Herman because there's a lot of stuff. I mean, Herman's a decent sized, little town there. But
so this is right before Herman?
It's right after.
Right after.
Right
Herman.
after.
Okay,
so I would tell folks, when you're doing the race this year, plan on stopping at New Haven.
Yeah.
We're gonna be open from 3 p.m. on Wednesday until 3 p.m. on Friday. So 48 hours. Open for 48 hours straight.
Yeah.
We're going to have all kinds of food, all kinds of drinks, all kinds of tools, all kinds of whatever you need to get you back on the river and help you finish that last 70 miles. We're going to have barbecued pulled pork sandwiches. We're going to have hot ham and cheese sandwiches. We're going to have hot dogs. We're going to have hamburgers. We're going to have baked beans. We're going to have coleslaw. We're going to have all kinds of drinks.
It's like Zarda on the road.
It is going to be the best. You need a new dry bag. You need zip ties, duct tape, batteries, you name it. We're going to have it. We're going to take care of you. We're going to have it down by the boat ramp. We got some ramp captains. My daughter and her fiance are going to be there. My wife's going to be there. And so we're going to just run this. It's going to be amazing.
That's awesome.
If you want to walk up to the restaurant, there's going to be showers. Bring your own towel.
Yeah.
But there's showers. There's restrooms. Whatever you need to get you back going for 70 miles. And you can go to my website, MidwestPaddleRacing.com, and you can actually pre-order any of the food that you want. And I would suggest please do, because that helps me know how much I need to have ready, right?
Yeah.
But if you pre-order, we will guarantee that it will be ready for you. I will track you. I will track your boat number on the race owl when you're coming, when you're going to be there. And if you pre-order, guaranteed to have what you need when you arrive.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
So it'll be interesting for me for sure, and fun. I'm looking forward to it because I've never experienced the MR340 from the side of the river.
Right.
And I've been a ground crew on different races. I've never been a ground crew on the 340.
Yeah.
But typically the ground crew, you're still focused on one boat. You're still part of a team.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I'm going to be
you're part of the collective.
Stationary at this one spot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see every boat go by.
Yeah. The race comes to you.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. And, my wife's like, so we're going to be awake for 48 hours? No, you don't have to be awake. It's okay. It's okay. I've got beds over there for my kids and my wife. They're going to sleep however much they need to. But, if I can paddle for 48 hours, I can run a pit stop for 48 hours, right?
Sure.
So it'll be fun for me. I'm looking forward to it. So
I love it. Well, and again, you don't just abandon the thing, right? You figure out another angle to make it better. And I love that. It's one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you today. Let's talk about growing this sport overall.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about growing this sport overall. So, you talked about the kids under 18 coming in. How do you mentor the next generation of racers? You've seen a lot of growth in this sport, right? Between 50 racers, maybe in 2007, 8 to 500
Mhm.
racers in 24.
Mhm.
And this is just the MR 340. Um, how do you think there are some ways to attract more younger athletes to the table?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's not something that I think I'm going to tackle. I mean, somebody could certainly tackle it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if somebody wanted to set up a training program or something, but it's a tough sport to get into from barriers to entry, right? If you want to be a runner, like for example, all my kids, they're not super big athletes. It's not their jam. They've raced with me. They've all raced with me one time or another, but they're not super big athletes. But I told all of them, when you're in high school, I said you have to have one fine art and you have to have one sport
Yeah.
in high school.
Yeah.
And then once you're done with high school, I don't care what you do, right?
Yep.
And if you don't choose a sport, then mom and I'll choose a sport for you.
Yep.
Well, none of them chose a sport, right? They did. So I'm like, guess what? You're doing cross country.
Okay. You're running.
Because all you need is a pair of shoes.
Yep.
Right. And I didn't have to go to crazy tournaments and I mean,
Sure.
just credit to all those moms and dads and kids who do whatever. I mean, I was a big wrestler in soccer player in high school. But like, I know those all day tournaments and all day things and all that stuff. I'm like, hey, cross country, it's like a 20-minute race and my only investment's a pair of shoes. Right. And so that's what we did. And so for canoeing though, I mean, even if you buy like an entry level kayak, you're still going to spend $1,000. Then you got to buy a paddle.
I want to say it correct. 800 to $1,000
$1,000
for an entry level.
Let's say like a plastic boat that you buy at Dick's or whatever. Like if you want to buy even a decent, what I call a more decent one that's maybe a 14-foot or a 16-foot kayak, you're going to spend, or maybe like a Winona, like a nice Winona canoe. Yeah, you're going to spend $1,500 to $2,500.
Yeah, we're not talking the Pelican 10-foot kayak that is just play around here, right? We're talking specialized boats designed for either touring or somewhat.
Like if you buy a touring kayak, for example. I mean, that's the first year I did it in an Epic 18 touring kayak. Yeah. I bought a used one for $1,200. Yep. And that was a used one. Yeah. And that was 20 years ago or 18, whatever, years ago. Right. Now you can probably still find one for $1,200, $1,500 on the used market. Yeah. But if you buy a brand new one, you're going to spend $3,000 or $4,000.
But that's a lot of money. And
it's a lot of money.
Yeah. And I've considered, we'll do it. I mean, I'm just loving what I'm doing right now. This is so much fun. I want to talk with people about that. Do you know the average person has a hard time writing a $500 check?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we're talking about paying the electric bill and the gas bill and not having the ability to do that, let alone go out and spend $1,500 on a boat. I mean, this is a first world problem.
It is for sure. Right. But to your point and your question, how do you get people into the sport? Yeah. It's tough. I mean, if you want to be a runner, again, you can buy a pair of shoes, buy some shorts and some socks, and you can walk out your front door and go for a jog. Yeah.
Well, once you've got the boat, I mean, how difficult is it to get to the river? And then once you get there, you got to have somebody shuttle you from here back and forth. Or you're taking two cars, or you're going over to Smithville from us, which is a half-hour drive over, half-hour drive back. Mm-hmm. I mean, it takes a lot of time.
It's not easy. And then, so if you want to train someone how to, if you want to be a coach for a basketball team or a coach for a soccer team or a coach for a football team, then I mean, the kids have to buy their own clothes and gear, but there's community fields. Yeah. Everybody shows up together. Yeah. There's not a huge investment or a huge, right? But if you want to be a paddling coach, like, okay, do they all have their own boats? Or do you have to have like a livery of boats, right? And paddles and everything else that goes along with it, right? Yeah. So it's tough. You've got to really have the financial means to enter the sport, right? And so it's tough. So I don't know how to tackle that problem other than at least my little part of it, which is to say, if you're under 18, you get a free entry because at least you take that burden, very small, relatively speaking, financial burden off of the parents or whatever. Yep. But I've accumulated boats over the years, right? And I will tell you this, in all my life, I have never bought a brand new boat, not once.
Thank you for that, because there's a lot of people who say, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to go buy a new boat. I'm going to buy everything new. And it's not about that, right? I mean, there's so many other things that you've covered that talk about what readiness can do for you, how preparation and planning. I mean, you can have the fastest boat and the poorest plan, and somebody like you is still going to beat me.
I've seen so many people who's spend all this money on a big brand new boat,
Yeah.
but it's like you need to still train. You still need to have a good plan, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, and I get it. Like, I'll do a quick plug for Riverhawk Boat Shop. I mean, we didn't buy Riverhawk Boat Shop, and we are not doing that business to make a lot of money,
Right.
at all. We're not. We don't, right?
Right.
But it's fun,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yeah.
enjoy building something that is totally unique,
Passion project.
very fast, looks amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's all of it, right?
Yep.
But I mean, I get it. Like, just to barely make a little money, we got to sell these boats for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000.
Yeah.
And that's not something that is normal. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not something everybody
Yeah.
can afford.
Right.
So, I mean, I would not have a Riverhawk if I did not build them myself.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't. I would not go drop $5,000 on a boat.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Right now, I want to sell them.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Sure.
But it's for the right people who say, hey, I've got this disposable income and I can do it.
Right.
So, like I said, it's not the boat for everybody. We understand it's an expensive boat.
Right.
It's mostly labor. I mean, that's what it is. I mean,
Right.
we kind of look at Riverhawk Boat Shop. If you've seen like Ford versus Ferrari,
Yeah.
right? Or if
Yeah.
you know anything about, everybody's seen that, almost everybody's
That's
seen that
one
movie.
of the best movies I've seen in a long time.
So good, right?
So good.
But so Ferrari back then, especially, right? I mean, it's like this, like Enzo Ferrari is like, we're not going to be Ford. We're not going to, they're hand built custom
Yeah.
cars,
Yeah.
like beautiful, racing machines,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Never wanted to be some big mass produced special, whatever.
Right.
And that's kind of how we look at Riverhawk. It's like, we know they're expensive, but these are hand built, handcrafted.
Sure.
80% of the cost is labor.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe 85. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes about 100 man hours
Right.
for A-Dog and I to build a boat. And so,
Well, and you think about those hours too, particularly as we're getting older, that time is valuable.
right.
So
but
you need
it's-
to be compensated for it.
well, and it's something we love to do too. It's
Right.
kind of like we talked about earlier, some days it's, you get your job, you have to think a lot, whatever.
Mhm.
It's something you can do, a craft,
Mhm.
right? A hobby,
Yeah.
something you can step back and look at and be proud of.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we like to do that. But, it's nice also to see, kind of like Ford versus Ferrari, like how dominant Ferrari was
Yeah.
in the Le Mans
Yeah.
for so long,
Yeah.
right? And so the success that Riverhawks had in the MR340, we're very proud to see that.
Yeah.
So a couple stats, right? So if you look at the solo boats, right, the solos, 6 out of the last 9 solo winners have done it in a Riverhawk. So
Wow.
2015, 16, 18, 19, that was the river,
The cold
the
one.
cold one, which
Yeah.
if I had finished, I would have, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
22, 23, and 24. So 6 out of the last 9 years, the first solo winner was in a Riverhawk.
That's crazy. Well, you got the Quattros and some of these others too that are finishing first still as well, right?
So that's just the solo class. Yeah, and still to stay on the solo for a second, the 2 fastest overall times in
Right.
the solo were done in the Riverhawk. Like I said earlier, Slabos in 15
Yeah.
and me in 18.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 fastest solo times ever, both in Riverhawks. The overall winning boat in the MR340 was in a Riverhawk in 22, a Riverhawk in 23, and a Riverhawk in 24. So for the last 3 years, the overall winning boat was a Riverhawk.
Wow.
Dustin LeCave, Duddy,
Yeah.
won it as a soloist. Insane that he did that. That was our first boat that A-Dog and I ever made. And he won the overall as a soloist.
Wow.
He beat the Kraken that year. He beat me, A-Dog, and Matt in our Kraken in a solo Riverhawk. It's like we gave our competitor like the keys to the kingdom, and he beat us. But then also last year, 2024, was there was 3 class winners were in Riverhawks. So the solo, the team class, and the men's tandem. All 3 of those classes were won by either a solo Riverhawk, a tandem Riverhawk, or the Quattro that I was in. And then also in 2024, the top 2 boats were Riverhawks. the top three out of the top 5 overalls were in Riverhawks, and 6 out of the top 11 were Riverhawks. So Riverhawk had 6 boats last year finish in the top 11 overall.
Boy, you know, when I think about what the finish line looks like, and for those of you who've never seen it, it's worth your time if you're in the St. Louis area or whatever, and the end, near the end of the race, to see how they stack the boats. They just take them out of the water for you, and they've got a big boat garage basically all throughout the.
It's a big field there,
Yeah.
kind of, and,
Yep.
they just line them up, and it's kind of cool because the first boat in, they put it right there by the sidewalk,
Yeah.
and then there's the next boat, and the
That's
next boat, and the
my
next
point.
boat, and so you can see, right?
Yeah. So those first 10 boats are literally right there.
Yep.
That is
and it was
that
all,
is
like,
incredible.
a whole bunch of Riverhawks, which was pretty cool for me to see, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
I mean, that's incredible.
Thanks, appreciate it. But no, you can go find good boats to meet your needs on the secondary market.
Yep.
And that's fine. And I would say if your budget, let's just say your budget for gear and boat and it all put together, let's just say $2,000.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll get you started quite well.
Very well.
Very
Yep.
well. Yeah.
Yep.
Don't go buy a $1,900 boat and a $100 paddle.
Right.
Go buy a $1,600 boat and a $400 paddle.
Yeah.
Because think about this. If you're paddling on the MR340, okay, just do the math.
We did it. We did it. I'm ready to hear it. I want to
I'm
see if your numbers line up with mine.
a math guy, right? And I'm a statistics guy. If you are paddling for, let's just say 50 hours,
Yep.
and you have a stroke rate of 80 strokes a minute,
Yep.
right? Do the math. You are going to take more than 250,000 paddle strokes during that race.
Yep. Yep.
Get a paddle that is good.
Yep.
Get a paddle that weighs 12 ounces or 16 ounces, not a paddle that weighs 3 pounds.
Yeah.
Because now you're lifting that paddle 250,000 times.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I say. We've got this. I'm pointing in the room here. This is my paddle. It's a 54-inch bending branches, wooden paddle, and it's heavy,
Right.
Compared to the community of practice.
Yeah. But at least it's a bent shaft.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good. Right.
We
You
gave
got that,
ourselves
right.
We gave ourselves a little bit, but people on a budget, right? Trying to figure this out. Used boat, had been in the race before. We shout out Carl Collier. I don't know if you know Carl. He bought a boat from you. I think at one point he was talking through. So we bought our boat from Carl. He spent almost like half of a day talking about how the boat was set up and why he did certain things. We made improvements. We made changes. We raced in it for 2 years, and then we sold it. And it was great.
Yeah,
great way to do it. And you never walk away not costing you anything, but it wasn't a whole lot.
No, exactly. But I would say, that's the mistake a lot of folks make, is trying to maximize the boat on their budget, and then unknowingly they have to scrimp a little bit on the paddle or whatever. I mean, get a PFD that fits, that feels good, that's not going to chafe you, right?
Yes.
Get a paddle that is ergonomic, right? And find a used one if you can't buy a new one, right? But I mean, a 12-ounce carbon fiber paddle is way better than a 3-pound, aluminum plastic paddle. I mean, it just, like, that's my advice.
I completely agree. And to your point about the PFD that fits, I thought mine fit. And then, the 2024 race was in August last year. I still have a scar underneath my right armpit from where the strap went through and was cutting. I had blisters and everything there. It was one of the most painful places of the race recovery.
Well, again, that's why I switch off. I switch out PFDs, right?
Yeah.
I'll do the belt during the day, then I put the normal one on during the evening to conserve some core heat, right?
Yeah.
And then I switch back and forth because you're removing those friction points. That'll end up being like that little straw that broke the camel's back and rub you, and you're just like, I mean, oh yeah.
Yeah. So again, new racers, if you're listening to this, people who are interested in supporting or maybe being a ground crew from somebody, Joe spit a ton of feedback. All right, Joe, any last words for our folks before we go?
Yeah, I would say, like, the most important thing if you're doing something like this is to enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it, right? Now, again, you kind of talked about the 3 different types of fun, right? So
Yeah.
there's gonna be times where you're like, okay, this sucks. It's suffering, it's pain, it's whatever,
Yeah.
right? But at the end of the day, I knew that first year, the second I finished, I mean, I was 61 hours, all this things in my head. But at that second, I think, one of the guys that worked with Scott Mansker that started the race, Russ, he looked at me and said, "So you're gonna do this again?" And it took me about 2 seconds, and I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
100%." Right. So
Yeah.
if you can't answer that question pretty dang quick after you finish, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would just say enjoy it is number one, but how to get to that point is, I kind of mentioned this earlier, like set multiple goals.
Right.
You may not achieve the number one goal that you're going for,
Right.
right? There's been many races where I have not achieved like kind of that ultimate goal or the stretch goal or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
but if you set multiple goals, then make some realistic and you check some off the box.
Yeah.
And one of the goals should definitely be, have a great time with the people you're doing it with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's teammates in the boat, teammates on the ground crew, other competitors that you meet along the way. I mean, there's been some amazing friendships that I've built, not just with my teammates in the boat, but also competitors alongside me that, we ended up paddling together for a good section of the race.
Yeah.
And, still great friends to this day. So, make memories, enjoy it. Right.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great advice.
Thanks.
Anything that you want to talk through that we haven't covered before? I also noticed that you had a couple of other things that maybe we want to shout out.
Well,
to
I just wanted to call out to a couple of the sponsors
Yes.
from Midwest Paddle Racing.
Yeah.
So one's a longtime sponsor. So Hammer Nutrition. Hammer Nutrition's been a sponsor of Midwest Paddle Racing since day one.
What is Hammer Nutrition?
Hammer Nutrition is it's a nutrition company that focuses on ultra endurance sports and endurance sports. So they have things like gel packs, Hammer Gel, they come in a variety of flavors. They have Heed, which is a kind of a electrolyte mix that you mix with water. They've got Perpetuum, which is a meal replacement. So they've got all kinds of stuff that you need that you can use based on your flavor, based on your liking, based on how you want to do it, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, so Hammer Nutrition, one of my big sponsors. So shout out to them. Thanks for sponsoring us. A relatively new sponsor last year and this year is AI Bottling, based out of Missouri.
AI Bottling?
AI Bottling.
Okay.
Based out of Central Missouri.
Okay. Reaching back here, going to grab a bottle of some stuff out of a bag.
So people might be surprised that an alcoholic brewing company is our sponsor. But,
okay.
But they have a couple of great products. One is called Truman Reserve.
Okay.
Bourbon whiskey. This is absolutely amazing stuff. It's really, really good. So you can hear. So we have a couple bottles here of Truman Reserve and of what's called Honey Creek Hollow spiced rum. So these two bottles, so I'm reading the back of the label here. It's AI Bottling, but they're in Central Missouri, and they're a great sponsor. So they were our sponsor last year. They're a sponsor again this year. So at all of the three main races before the 340, the Mean Lamine, the Shootout, and the Freedom Race, we're gonna give away some of these bottles at the raffle and for some of the overall winners.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you go through one of the toughest experiences and you want to celebrate at the end of a race. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, there you go.
So well done. Yeah. So thank you to Hammer Nutrition and A1 Bottling. Did I say that right? AI Bottling. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. And Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really do appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time. This has been an excellent experience for me, and hope you enjoyed it too. With that, this has been the Son of the Law podcast. Have a great day, everybody.